In a world with only two genders, two best friends decide to break the mold.
It's literally the last week of school. Why don't you just go talk to Sasha? Because she thinks I'm gay. I can't just instantly change my sexuality.
Oh! Forrest, can't hit the gay kids.
Think about it. We both pretend to be trans. What? This will fix all of our problems. I just need a chance to talk to Sasha, okay? So she can know how awesome and straight I am, and nobody will think that I'm gay literally ever again.
Yeah, you can put your hands there. Yeah, that's what the girl does.
What are you so smiley about? I think I might be trans. Yeah, you are. So am I. Are you keeping up with the plan?
Welcome to womanhood, sluts.
This movie really surprised me. I really didn't know what I thought of it when it started, and it just really hooked me. Siobhan, tell me a little bit about the genesis of this story.
I mean, this movie is such a funny culmination of me. I was in college when COVID hit, and I got stuck back in my parents' house, walking the same streets I walked in high school, watching all of those comfort movies I watched when I was young. And that was percolating around my brain as we came out of COVID lockdown, and I was moving through the world as a trans person, dealing with the world in this bathroom panic era where that's the politics that's being leveled upon everyone. And it felt like those two things, that like lineage of me in high school and lineage of those comfort movies and the reality of the modern day bathroom politic, felt like there was a clear connection between the two of them that was this like Shakespearean history of high school comedy, this Shakespearean gender play movie, because we have movies like 10 Things I Hate About You and She's the Man that are tying through something like Some Like It Hot all the way back to like this idea of the gender swap comedy. And so it felt like there was an obvious lineage within that had this queer and trans subtext running all throughout it for like hundreds of years. And it just suddenly felt like it made perfect sense to make that subtext text. And I was surprised that no one had gone about and done it, especially in the context of this genre, the high school comedy, that always feels like it's one of the most explicitly queer versions of this and feels like it has one of the most strong queer undertones. And so those two things, my real life, butt up against each other and basically birthed this movie as a joke to one of my close friends. I wrote it in 2 days, sent it to them, and they, in a very sincere way, went, "You should make this." And then, now we're all here.
That's great. So I think the thing that I think is fascinating about this movie and everything you just said is that when I started watching it, I was a little bit horrified that it was playing into that stereotype of the bathroom politics and this ludicrous idea that we can't seem to get past, that we're going to have a bunch of straight men pretending to be trans men just to get into locker rooms and things. And then it became so clear that you were playing with it and making a parody of it. Were you ever concerned that people weren't going to get it and that someone was going to look at this and say, "See, this is what I'm afraid that what's going to happen," that people will get
It's
taken
actually
the wrong way?
the reason I cast so many trans people. I mean, it's this movie has a pretty unprecedented number of trans people in front of the camera, but also behind the camera. And honestly, to me, one of the funniest meta jokes of the movie would be if a conservative watched this movie and went, "Hey, that sounds like my politics. This sounds like it agrees with me." Watched the movie and went, "Yeah, I love those boys." And then looks up both Emmett and Nico and realizes they're both trans men and they're both very prominent members of the media. Like, in my fever dream, I would love it to feel like it's a bear trap that could catch one of those people and maybe reveal to them the humanity of transness and tell them a story that might actually, hopefully, potentially change their mind, or at the very least get them to relate to and see themselves in a trans man, which I do just think has irrevocable effects of revealing the reality of the farce of binary and cisgender, and also to create this like hopefully little brain worm to just get, I don't know, maybe even just one of them a little farther towards our cause.
I love that. And that's one of the great things about the film is that it does give you opportunities to see things through a different point of view. And for me, I'm a cis white male who is very much an ally and whose best friend is is trans. So I'm still learning, but movies like this do so much for me. Misha, I have I cried more than once in this movie. Your performance, I love the character of Ethan, and your performance is just luminous.
Mm.
Um, Tell me about stepping into Ethan's male identity for the film and portraying the truth of this character's journey.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I was so excited to sign on to this movie. It also fell relatively early in my transition. So I think everybody on set, me the most, was surprised at, frankly, how hard it was to detransition on camera, and sort of go through the process again. And it was so rewarding because in a lot of ways I got to redo high school, especially watching it back, the final product, and how beautifully it all fell together and how talented these people are. Uh, I'm very lucky to stand in this movie next to these people, but playing Ethan and being able to go through a high school journey of transitioning in a lot of ways the most supportive way, both on set and reality, with all these trans and queer people in front of him behind the camera, but also, in this movie, it's sort of like the best case scenario. My mom, after some trials and tribulations, really accepts me. My best friend accepts me. I'm welcomed into this group of girls or femmes, and it was so rewarding, but also I didn't expect how hard it would be, to go through some of the muddier parts of being a boy again. And it was a real lesson for me in the weight of being trans, especially that young. And I wish that obviously I had a movie like this when I was growing up because I would be able to see myself on camera. But high school was a really trying time. And I do think that being able to build in support for trans people in high school it's paramount. We need young trans people to believe that there is a future. Like that line in the movie, I can't see myself getting older. We need trans people to be able to believe that, yes, of course you can get older. You can build a new self. And so as hard as it was to be a boy for a bit in this movie, it really landed on me, how important it is to be trans on screen and to see all the little messy, amazing parts of being trans on screen.
Now, Malia, I saw this movie at the same time that I was binge watching screeners of Cape Fear, and and you are amazing. I mean, I've seen you jump from that mix of drama and horror where you're so unhinged and this mix of sensual and frightening, and then jumping into this light comic role. I was just absolutely blown away. Which which is more challenging for you, do you think?
Oh, wow. I mean, they're both challenging in their own rights. I honestly think, and I tell this, I try to say this as much as I can. I don't think like Cape Fear would exist with me without She's the He, because She's the He happened the summer before the spring I booked Cape Fear, and I think Sasha and her intensity and her ferocity really challenged me as an actor in ways that I hadn't been challenged before. And like being in step with not only like her comedic rhythm but her confidence was something that like was a whole new undertaking for me as an artist, and something that like I was constantly in conversation with Misha and Shiv about like during production. And I think like the cool thing about She's the He is that like um yeah, it kind of like forced us to all reckon with like truths about our identity and about our biases and about how we see ourselves and how other people perceive us. But like because we're so supported by the cast and crew around us, like we were all able to have those conversations together. But anyway, it's like I think there was like a lot of true collaboration in this film that like allowed me to go on a set like Cape Fear, and really take chances, and really ask permission to do kind of like the more wily, crazy things that my character on that show does. And I don't know, I do think there's a weird through line with the two of them. Like even with like, there's a moment where like Sasha laughs, and in this unhinged like fight sequence that we have at the end of the film, like, and I do think like that laugh was the first time I laughed in like a crazy way on screen, and then I got to take that new tool in my toolbox and take it to Cape Fear. But yeah, I don't think one is harder than the other. I think whether it be horror or comedy, they kind of exist in the same space of like, again, rhythm and timing. And I love finding that music in my body, and like it's both those genres are something I want to continue to play in for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I think that there's more of a kinship than we realize between
Yeah.
the two. Tell me what resonated with you about the character of Forrest.
Yeah, for sure. Forrest to me, I mean, they just felt like such a grounding energy within like the girl friend group. And that's something that I've kind of always like related to is kind of just being the person to always look like be on the lookout for my friends. And you know, they're still figuring it out. And I think that's something that's beautiful to portray, someone who's like thinks they know what they're who they are and they're still, but you know, ultimately being 18 in the film, like they're still figuring themselves out, but still like with an air of confidence. And I think that's something that's super beautiful to see on screen and to have someone in high school who knows their gender identity, or at least is beginning to understand like who they are, was just like so beautiful to me because you know, I didn't come out until I was about 20, 21, and then started to, like kind of understanding my own gender experience better, not probably until 22, 23. And so to play a sort of younger kid who has that sort of like self-assuredness, but is also figuring it out was really beautiful and exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's part of why I'm so excited for my friend to see it is that they are 40s and didn't even come out at all until like late 20s, early 30s. So I wish that a movie like this had been around at that time. So this is your first film. You've done
Yes.
a good amount of television. What was the biggest challenge or the thing that was most unexpected for you about this project?
Yeah. You know, before this, I hadn't done television. So I didn't do television until after we filmed it, or, yeah, about a year after we filmed this. And so this was my first, like, you know, multiple week project. I had done a few short films before this and a few music videos, and I've modeled for many years, but this was my first, like, sort of longer stint with a cast and a crew. And to the challenges, I mean, probably just in my own confidence with how to like move and groove on the set and feeling kind of like I had no idea what was going on. Like I just felt very it just everything was very new, you know, like even just acting in front of a camera is because I did theater growing up, but acting in front of a camera and even just figuring out like my eye line and figuring out how like, you know, act a lot. I had no idea that often you're not even acting with your scene partner. You're actually, you know, they're not available at that time or date. So then you have to act to just like a little dot on the edge of the camera or something. And that was something that I didn't know. And oh my gosh, did I learn fast that you have to think on your toes. You have to be able to act with nothing to react to. So yeah, I learned a lot.
Now, Misha and Siobhan, I'm curious. One of the things that I really loved about this movie is that when the movie started, if I you talked about the history of high school movies, and if I had to pick a main character when I started watching this, I think I would have said that Alex was the main character, that Ethan was almost a sidekick, the Garth to Alex's Wayne, or the Cameron to Alex's Ferris, to go back to my generation. But Ethan really is the protagonist and becomes more so the more she embraces who she really is. And I think it says a lot about human nature that ideally, I think that we are all the protagonists in our own life. But how do you manage to be the protagonist in your life when you're not really, when you don't understand who you are or you're not being true to who you are? It was such an interesting commentary on that. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm so glad that that resonated because that was a lot of my intention was to essentially craft a movie that on this subtextual level was leaning towards or knocking towards the history of these buddy movies where there is always someone who's playing first position and there is always someone who's playing second position, and that on this subtextual, lower, not acknowledged level, transness, I think for a lot of trans people, life prior to cracking your egg, right? Life prior to coming out, life prior to existing as yourself, often does feel like you are both playing a role because you are playing a gender that is not accurate to who you are, and a lot of the time playing a secondary or supporting role because you genuinely just can't step into your protagonist status. And so I didn't want to make a movie that was trying to, really signal this structural idea that I had from writing the film. And I'm really glad that it translated, because that's something that I never know if it translates. I do want the movie to feel like it starts out by catching us, especially the audience, in our biases of seeing the loud, boisterous cis man and going, oh yeah, that must be the main character of this movie, because that's the main character of movies, are cis straight white guys. And then let this movie sneak up on you and reveal to you that there's actually a reason that that was the initial bias. And there's a reason that these characters are actually shifting their positionality in the film, and I hope in an audience's mind.
It's just great. If there's one thing that you hope people take away from this film, and this is geared to everyone, what do you think it would be?
I mean, I hope people take away joy. That was so much of the purpose of this. I was having a particularly hard day when I started writing this movie, and really more than anything, just wanted a movie that was a trans story that I could put on that night and just fall into and feel like it was a balm for how hard the world was treating me that day. And I really do hope that if this movie can be anything for anyone, it is that is something people can return to, that can remind them of the joy and the beauty and the humor in this experience, even in the darkest points for us as a community.
Thank you. Misha, what would you say?
Uh, I would say something that I've been learning about this movie as it resonates with audiences and seeing how people react. I always say that I'm fairly allergic to the phrase "it gets better," because it feels a little non-specific. What gets better? How does it get better?
Mm,
And I certainly didn't like when people told me that growing up as
yeah.
queer and realizing I was trans. But to go back to Shiv's amazing line in the movie, I couldn't picture myself getting older. Now I do. Now I can. That is what I would wish people to take away from the movie. Queer folks, obviously, but also, cis normie folks as well. Like, hi, you can build a new self. You can build a better self, and it doesn't have to come out of trial and tribulation and hard work. It just comes from being true to yourself. And there is a future where you live and exist in exactly the body that you want to, and exactly the way that you want to, surrounded by these amazing people. I finally found them later in life here in LA. And in lieu of "it gets better," I would say you can build a new self. You have options. And I wish somebody had told me you have options growing up. And that's what gives me a lot of hope, even personally, still today.
One thing.
Or more than one, but if,
I would have to say that I think the main thing I want people to take away, there's the line in the film where without giving too much away, that uh Ethan's mom says, have you ever seen a happy transgender? And my main takeaway, and I hope everyone takes away, that yes, you can be transgender and be the happiest and most joyous person in the world. And all it takes is, community and feeling love and feeling accepted, just like everyone else wants to feel. So I think that's kind of what this whole film is a portrayal of, because I think like queer identities and often transgender identities in film and TV have been these kind of tragic stories. And so I think that this film is an opportunity to show, yeah, transgender people have happy endings, and that there is space for all of us, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. And it might not be tomorrow, you might not see the light tomorrow, but like we do exist, and it's yeah. So that's probably my the most passionate thing I feel with this film.
It was kind of spoken to in such an articulate way by my counterparts here. I want people to have permission to laugh and to cry with their community and to experience that joy, and also, like, again, experiencing this film now across the country and also over the pond. It's resonated with people that come from all walks of life, and I think there's a lot to be taken away, and a lot of, again, permission to be taken from the film to like be the whatever self that you need to be to to like yourself and to like the world around you.